Okay, so African Free Trade Union, 1.2 billion people, free movement of goods, services, perhaps labor, but this is actually the biggest concern of the countries that have stopped, which is Nigeria, which is the largest economy in Africa. They stepped out of the African Union because they are afraid that their jobs will be at risk.
Oh, you're talking about the African Union.
Mm.
They step out from African Union?
Yes. Yeah, because they're at risk. They risk that members of citizens of other African countries might step in and they will lose their job, which is kind of like. So this is what we're talking about. We have lots of Nigerians coming to Europe, etc., to find jobs, but now they are worried that other Africans will take over their jobs. So one of the big points what they hope to achieve is that if they can boost trade, so if they can make more preferential trade agreements, then it is necessary to develop an infrastructure to actually move goods from one country to the other. So that will actually give rise to infrastructure investments, and that will create jobs and prosperity for.
Yeah. So last week discussion, you are talking about these kind of issues,
right?
But I have very skeptical for free trade
because we don't have any volume
yet.
Yeah, right.
So the final conclusion, maybe 2 decades, 3 decades later. Okay. So if so,
yeah,
I agree with you.
Yeah.
And also the other concern is I don't agree with you the democracy in Africa and decade to decade, but Africa is not familiar with democracy.
They are not familiar with democracy, but what they see is that actually countries who have adopted a democratic system.
Oh, I tell you, they say just on democratic system, only on the election. But election is every election rigged.
No, I don't believe that to be true. Actually, effective democracies are the ones that bring
Which
prosperity.
Country are you talking about? And Botswana, South Africa, yes, I agree with you. Or Tunisia, I agree with you.
Yeah. So
Egypt, yes, I agree with you.
And other countries will
but
follow.
Not more than 10 out of 50.
It's true. Actually, if you look at there is a map that basically the kind of the democracy thermometer, and it doesn't look good. Actually, there's only 8 countries in Africa.
I agree with you. But last week you showed me video for Africa is prevailing, penetrating democracy system in Africa. So last week, what kind of video are you going to try to show us?
I will show a video about the African free trade union. All right, so it could create jobs, and that actually also I think that also what it really wants to do is that it wants to create a better negotiation position of Africa as a continent versus China versus United States. Well, the United States is not doing that much in Africa to begin with, versus Europe. So basically they don't want to negotiate bilaterally with China because they know that they will lose. So that is another incentive to create this Africa Free Trade Union. So that integration will not happen overnight. That's usually a process that takes time. They do want to make it faster than the European Union.
Integration?
Yeah. So basically the steps here. Okay, the first stage is just closer economic cooperation. And the second stage, a custom union. That means that they are going to reduce the customs tax in import duties, and they are going to impose a common outside tax rate. So that generally the internal tax rates versus the external tax rates are going to benefit intra-trade, so trade inside Africa. If that is successful, then and if they manage to eradicate their trade barriers, their import duties, then there comes a common market where goods and services and labor move, and tariff quota between countries will be reduced and taken away. So basically create one market, and then further integration, which will eventually lead to a single currency. Ooh. Okay. I think it stops.
No, I need to say this one.
Okay.
Okay, this is success.
No, not that one.
No, it's okay. Don't say.
Saved, issue.
No, don't say. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So actually, it's different from EU. In Europe, we created a common currency, and then we started to integrate the common market.
Ah, right.
So it is a different order. Basically, the common the euro, the common currency, was an effort to basically force Europe to unite.
Kadhafi tried to make a common currency, right? Kadhafi.
Which is ridiculous.
But he saw that, right?
Right, but that's obviously ridiculous. You cannot create a common currency without any integration whatsoever. So
he tried to using his money.
yeah, well, fortunately that didn't work, and it would have been a catastrophe. So no, that is not a good idea. You need certain integration.
I understand. Of course, yes, I understand.
Yeah.
Because even if each of those countries cannot manage by themselves, how come they're going to consider for the common currency?
Right. Nonsense.
I understand.
That's nonsense.
Even common market is very dangerous.
Right. Well, actually, this steps toward integration is, economically speaking, much more prudent than what Europe did. So in Europe, they switched step 4 and step 3, and that's actually dangerous. And what we see now is that there is a very big free ride incentive, because we already have a common currency, but we don't have an integrated economic policy, which means that there is a big incentive for countries to cheat and to actually
Of course,
exceed their
they're worrying about developed country, South Africa, and the underdeveloping country worrying about kind of sort of invasion, right? Okay.
So that is those are the steps of integration that they're envisioning. So what challenge do we have? Well, first of all, actually, it took EU more than 50 years to establish their European Union to what it is today. Some integration in Africa already exists. The East African Community. There is another, I forgot the name. There's another kind of free trade union, but that's just basically a dead letter. It's not really a very significant economic pact. But there are regional trade unions already in place.
But first of all, my curiosity for these kind of issues, they have very diversified economic positioning among African countries. Right? Some country advanced countries, some country undeveloping, some countries kind of still very weak economic positioning. So Eastern African community or kind of Southern Africa custom union is understandable.
Right.
because they try to
Kind of similar. Yeah.
exactly. So how do you think about this?
So there are different strengths, and this is also what worries countries like Nigeria, and probably also worries South Africa. But on the other hand, if we look at who really benefits from the EU, you could argue, if you look at the money streams that go from Europe into the member countries, you could argue that countries like Italy and Ireland,
Same problem.
they benefit.
Yeah.
But actually, if you look at like a country like Germany would independently, Germany would have been so much stronger. They would have a very strong currency if they would only if it would only be Germany. So the Deutsche Mark, the D-Mark, would have been so much harder than the Italian lire. That actually, by putting these things together and making it a shared currency, the valuation of the euro is actually a kind of weighted average of its member countries. That means that actually Germany inherits a much cheaper euro than what they would get if they were by themselves. So their export, the capacity to export, is dramatically supported by the European Union. So they actually benefit from the EU, but in a very hidden way, because they are a net contributor. They are paying much more than they get from Europe, and they need to have a strict fiscal policy, and there are all kinds of things that seem to be not so beneficial for Germany, but actually under the surface.
What do you mean not so beneficial to Germany? What do you mean? They benefit by currency unbalance.
Yes.
Right?
So currency they benefit, but that's not something that is visible. But if you look at what's visible is, okay, how much does Germany contribute to the EU as a membership payment, and how much do they get back? So they pay much more than what they get back from Europe. So they are basically sponsoring.
You're talking about for example, immigration.
Immigration, but I'm also talking about just membership fees. So all kinds of subsidies, agricultural subsidies, other subsidies that are being paid by the EU. They all go to the weaker nations in the European Union. So the contribution that is being paid,
Greece,
which is very significant.
Greece.
Yeah, like Greece and like Ireland is a very famous case. They benefited very much from the rules that have been set up. A lot of European money went to Ireland. So these countries really benefit, like
you
direct.
Poland or Hungary, they got a subsidy.
Right.
So same thing. We are much more diversified in Africa. Right? Like Congo is the GDP per head is 450.
Yeah.
South Africa, I don't know, 10,000. Or South Africa don't want to join with Congo. Republic of Congo, right?
Right, but actually, if you are in Congo, are you going to go to South Africa or are you going to go to Europe?
But South African people don't expect Congo people coming to South Africa.
No, and I don't think they will.
Why?
But I mean, why would they go to South Africa? They can also go to Europe.
Europe will not accept Congo people.
No, but still they come.
Smuggling?
Trafficking?
No, Italy is just blocked out already.
Right, Italy is.
European people will not accept African people. They don't want to. So if you're going to African Union, okay, just Congo people moving to more developed country like
Could
South
be,
Africa
yeah.
or Botswana,
Nigeria.
Egypt or Tunisia.
Nigeria. Well, almost anything besides Central Africa is better than.
Because they can eat, right? Like Central America. Central American people, El Salvador, and those country people moving up to America, right? Same. So Africa is more diversified. So I think it's very difficult to recognize just the African Union will going to be established, even if 2 decades later. Still, consider that one country 10,000 per person, one country 450, or so. South Sudan is just $400. Somalia is exactly no government existing, right? The sort of people moving around. Oh, it's my God, I don't want to accept those people, right?
Well, Somalia.
It's crimes is increasing. Even if South Africa has a lot of crimes, but so they don't want to do that, right?
South Africa has a lot of crime, yeah.
So these sort of things, I think. But I understand you said challenge. Okay, this challenge, but.
Yeah, so what actually you were saying and what I looked into is that actually the intra-trade is intra-Africa trade is only 16% of total trade. So 84% is trade between African nations direct with Europe or Asia or United States. Only 16% is intra.
Intra means intra.
Is from one African nation to another.
Intra-Africa, right?
Yeah, so it's only 16%. It's very
understandable. Would be understandable because no need, right?
Yeah, but there's not like one nation in Africa that
okay,
is
for example, the Africa product is clothing. Clothing. Why not? They're going to export from like Addis Ababa to export to the Central Africa. No, they don't want to do that. They export.
Well, I don't.
Shoes.
I don't know that they're making a lot of clothes yet.
No, they're just one of the most prominent industry in
clothing
in that country. And that
in country? Ethiopia.
Yeah.
But nothing compared to Bangladesh, for example, right?
No. They are very strong power they have because Ethiopia is also very low per capita. Competitive against Bangladesh. And also they are much more government, much more emphasis on this clothing industry. What's the name of the city? Famous city in Ethiopia.
This Addis Ababa.
No, famous city for clothing.
I
forget that. In my book I written down. But I understandable, 60%, of course. Yeah. Export to Europe.
Right.
They got more money.
Right, but export inside Africa is also could be an advantage if they create a free trade union. And if they actually have their own clothing industry, it could work. It could be that Ethiopia is going to export clothes to other African nations. I could definitely see that happen.
Really?
Yeah.
If I'll just export to Europe.
If you can. If you can, because
You mean the quality?
If we need to import it anyway, okay.
Oh, okay. The African people they import a lot of used clothes from Europe.
Yes.
And almost free. And
not almost entirely free.
Free, right?
Yeah.
So this is just selling to intra-Africa.
So
this is understandable, but African country people selling to the other countries in Africa.
Of course, why not? I mean, basically, in the case of Europe, they need to compete with Bangladesh.
No, my question is, if you want to go into sell product and you are more higher developing country, more higher developed country, get more profit, right?
Sure, but now let's look
why
at
they are going to sell among inter-Africa.
So actually, it's a good opportunity for somebody to invest in Ethiopia to develop the clothing industry. If the African Free Trade Union will come into existence, then actually they have a cost advantage versus Bangladesh because of tariff. So basically, yes. So basically, their export they might be competitive enough together with the tariff to actually sell inside Africa. But exporting to Europe means that they need to actually be better than Bangladesh. That may be a little bit too much to ask.
Okay. Maybe